everyone. My name is Rebecca Rolling, and I recently joined the Symphony as Vice President of Patron and Community Engagement. And I'm here to talk about some very exciting news that we have here about the Symphony. We are proud to announce that Kathryn R, Nir Kabaretti, and Janet Garufis have committed to their leadership roles for the next 5 years, at least. Kathryn is no longer interim CEO, but she is joining us as full CEO. Nir has expanded his contract for 5 years, and Janet has agreed to stay on as board president for the next 5 years as well. They also, if that's not enough, they have the audacity to put us on a course for a 5-year strategic framework, which will not only carry us through the pandemic, but set us on a course for growth and strength into the future. And I can't tell you how unusual that is for Santa Barbara Symphony, but it's also been unusual for the community and for other arts organizations. And really, who does this during a pandemic? Well, this Leadership Triumvirate does it, and I'm so proud to be part of this organization. So I thought it would be interesting if we had a little chat about how you all came up with this agreement to work together for the next 5 years and really focus us on a path. And I'll start with Janet, because you're the one that got Kathryn to join us.
Well, sort of. The story really starts a lot longer ago than when Kathryn joined, in that the Symphony was the first board I joined when I became the president of Montecito Bank and Trust. And so it was really my first board experience in Santa Barbara. And Nir and I came to the Symphony about the same time. We were just hiring Nir. And so we have a very long friendship. We've known each other a long time. And I have to say, I have such admiration for Nir. And when I stepped into the role as president of the bank, I had to step down from the Symphony board because I had too many pressing obligations. And that was my top priority. But I have been a fan and a friend of the Symphony for all those years and admired from afar what's been going on. And I certainly have been aware of, how challenging it is for a symphony to thrive in the changing environment, not the least of which is a pandemic. But a couple of years ago, the former CEO of the Symphony came to me and said, we're really struggling and we really need some leadership. And would you consider coming on our board? And I thought, well, I'm in a place where I can do that. And I said yes. And I came to join the board and realized that there really was a leadership challenge at the moment, and that things felt very disconnected from the community. People felt disconnected from each other, and it just needed a boost. It needed a reboot. And Kevin decided to move to another opportunity. And it was at that time that I spoke to Kathryn, because Kathryn had actually been on the board. I met her when I came back to the Symphony, and we had a lovely conversation. And she was taking on a new challenge in Arizona and needed to step down from the board. And but she was definitely on my radar. And so when it was an opportunity for us to look for somebody to come in to help us reimagine the future, Kathryn was the perfect person, because what she did very, very well and has been doing for many years is to do just that. Come into organizations, help them reimagine their future, get them a plan and send them on their way. And then she goes off to help somebody else. So we were so fortunate that she said yes, and she stepped in, and then the pandemic started. Like maybe the next day, I don't know. It was really, it couldn't have been a more challenging situation, truly. But I have found that working with Kathryn has been really one of the great leadership experiences of my career, especially with nonprofit organizations. She is absolutely a consummate professional, and she knows this business very, very well. And she's the most collaborative person I've had the pleasure of working with. And it's exactly what our organization needed. And Nir has, in the pandemic, when Nir stepped in, my God, having Nir in town, who knew how much we need you to be in town, Nir? Nir wasn't off doing gigs in other places of the world, and here he is. And to have Nir and Kathryn to be able to work together, well, their vision and their creativity is just endless. And so that has really been at the heart of how this symphony has just really taken flight. And it's a very exciting time. And I know you asked the question, why would anybody do this in a pandemic? And the question I ask is, well, why not? What better time to do this than at a time when we can't do anything else but to think about, imagine how we might be even better when we get to the other side of this crazy time. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
This is what I like, like Janet just says this as it's a matter of fact. Like, of course we have to. What else could we do other than envision the future, other than try to find a path forward? Of course. This is why I love working with Janet and Nir so much, because Janet is like, of course, but we know but not all leaders do that. Not all leaders and organizations are able to or have that just within their DNA. But Janet does.
But that's the power of this triumvirate or this trio, is that we all think that way. We're wired that way, and we're wired to think boldly and toward the future. And we're committed to success. So I don't think any of the three of us is going to settle for this not being successful, just because that's kind of who we are. So,
and I've been a subscriber and a patron of the Santa Barbara Symphony for most of my life too, long before I joined the organization on the team. And I could see and I could feel that immediately, that the chemistry coming out of the organization and that personal connection. And it was Janet being front and center. It was Kathryn being front and center and visible. And it was Nir, seeing Nir in a whole new way, that wasn't just this beautiful artistry on the podium, but also up close and personal. So Nir, what was that shift like for you to rethink artistry in the time of a pandemic?
Well, it totally changed my world. I mean, in a good way. When it started in March, I'm used to plan at least 2 years ahead. We have the dates, we book the artists and of course guest artists, gigs and so on. I'm used to be at least once every 2 weeks, if not once every week on an airplane. And all of a sudden that is closed. And I had a wonderful discussion with Janet, and her optimism said, hey, Nir, I think we should have you step up to a different position, which is not just the artistic part. So, I was at the beginning a little bit relieved, okay, we are closed now, 2-3 concerts will cancel, but then in the summer it will pick up again. And then after a few weeks, we realized it will not pick up again in the summer. So we started to work on different scenarios. And, what my wonderful partner said before, it was not even an option to do what most of the orchestras in the US did, said, call us when the pandemic is gone. It was not an option. We knew we need to deliver something. We have a huge commitment, and the commitment is not only to the community, but a commitment to our musicians, to our workers. When we knew they are out of job, we said we must find ways for them to deliver the music. And so, we had to, I was definitely not, I could barely, take a selfie on my iPhone. And then all of a sudden we are dealing with writing a script, and said, well, I know how to conduct a Beethoven symphony. Don't ask me about script. So it's an incredible journey, I think, that we all learned during this time. And I couldn't look for really most generous partners. And on the board, the management said, yes, let's go for that. I mean, this courageous approach is really, is contagious, I want to say. So I feel very blessed to be part of this as we really look on different ways to deliver the music. Learn, and of course we will honor our tradition, but what we've learned now and the things we gain in this time, we will not lose that. We want to keep it also in the day after the pandemic.
So there's something really unusual that we're doing artistically that's different, but it also is supported by the generosity of our donors and our infrastructure, which is to bring on the orchestra to have orchestra performances, not just individual musicians. So Nir, can you talk a little bit about what that means operationally to bring the orchestra together to perform? And then Kathryn, maybe you can follow on with how we were able to do that. as an organization and support that?
Of course, we are very responsible. We need to make sure that it's safe on stage and off stage. Just enough, there is an entrance to the Granada, there's entrance to the dressing rooms. All of that is taken care of. How do we make sure that there's not a traffic jam of musicians with the instruments? How do they unpack and pack back their instruments in a safe way, being on stage? And we have a great team working with the orchestra committee, with the union, to make sure that we follow all the most strict requirements to make it safe for everyone. But also in the term of the repertoire, I'm sort of specialized in big pieces, Brahms, Mahler, whatever. All of a sudden, I need to look for smaller pieces, just because you cannot feature too many musicians on stage if you want to keep the 6 feet distance. Then there are other challenges, like, we want to put plexiglasses to isolate the woodwind so the airflow will go in a certain direction. All of that was studied very carefully. And with that, it's a little bit more challenging than putting a normal program. And I would like to add that on the top of that, the fact that we are so inspired, and Janet is a great resource to tell us what's going on in the community and all the beautiful things that happen. We are also highlighting or putting an emphasis artistically to highlight the local forces. So that's also in mind when I think of what we want to deliver to the audience. So it's a very interesting time for programming.
And Kathryn, maybe you can talk a little bit about how we're able to bring the musicians back, where a lot of orchestras haven't been able to bring the musicians back.
Yeah, I've been asked recently to reflect back on that, to answer that question. How were you able to do it? How are we able to do it? It doesn't seem like there's been enough time to already be reflecting back on lessons learned, but we are. And I think, in a nutshell, it's because of others. It starts with Janet's permission to try, and for our shared commitment to take care of those in our care. But and then it's like, as Nir said, I went to the orchestra committee. I went to the musicians local. We went to the Granada. Other orchestras don't have a venue in our town also who have shared leadership like Janet and Nir, who said, let's try. Let's try. When other venues just said, no, we can't. Let's see if we, how can we create protocols based on the science? How can we lead the way? How can we show our health department how it can work based on, we're very lucky to have such a professional venue that has what Nir, ultraviolet light and, excellent airflow. So I think the how is that we asked for help, that we asked for guidance, that we ran scenarios. And part of that asking for help too was to share our journey and share the unknowns with our community. And again, I started May 1st as interim, and we were quickly moving, and we had to ask the community for help. And not only did I learn how generous the donors are, the community is with financial donations, but we were getting, and we still get, handwritten notes with the checks, some small, some big, saying, thank you so much. Please keep going. We need you. We miss you. Thank you for taking care of our music education students. So that also gave me just the inspiration, and Nir talks often about our responsibility. So, as a nonprofit, we have this mission. Well, this mission is our promise to our community. And now more than ever, we could, like Nir said, and Janet said, we couldn't take a pause. So the how is by asking for help and being the beneficiary of that help, all kinds.
And Janet, you did something kind of extraordinary too. I know in partnership with Nir and Kathryn, which is you brought on a musician, an orchestra member onto the board. And that is extraordinary in the symphonic world.
Well, I think you've heard this from both Kathryn and Nir. At the basis of all of this is relationships. This community is built on that. And the symphony has been a community treasure for so many years. And we see that with our donors. We have a solid core of very loyal, dedicated donors who appreciate, I could say love the music, love the musicians, appreciate Nir. I mean, he's sort of a diva, really. I mean, people go, bravo, Nir. They love to spend time with him. So, I mean, maybe it's Gaia. They probably really like to spend time with Gaia. But anyway, but really, it's about community. And, our board was ready to do something. Our staff was eager to do something. They're young. They're so excited to learn, and they have stepped up in ways that were just extraordinary. So this is a time when we are all learning how to stretch and do things that we weren't sure we could do, but to have hope and to look for the promise and really to just forge ahead, not without thinking about it. We've been very thoughtful. There's been a lot of, as Kathryn said, scenario building and hard work and research. There's a lot of work that's gone on, to build this foundation. But this is really all about partnerships and community and relationships. Our partnership with the Granada has been amazing. They've been wonderful partners. And, we couldn't have done those performances without having worked with them the way we did. You don't see organizations like the Granada, the Symphony coming together to do joint fundraising. I mean, that kind of collaboration and trust is that's the linchpin of making this work. We have to trust each other. We have to trust each other to do the right thing. We have to be willing to speak up when we're not sure we're going in the right direction. And then we want to celebrate what successes we have and be sure everybody is part of the win, right? This isn't leaving people behind. This is being inclusive and making sure we're all on this path together. And so it's been a great, so far, it's been a pretty exciting journey. I mean, you two are doing all the heavy lifting, but I'm just sitting in the back, waving my hand. But I've said this to people in my career. I've said this in my business career. There are a couple of times, if you're lucky in your life, where you're at a certain place at a certain time in an organization and something magic happens. And you can feel that it's magic and special and different. You can feel it in the way the people are, in the way the relationships are, in the way the business is growing and the excitement that's there. And you want to just hold on to it. But in the holding on to it, you lose it. You risk losing it. So we can't just hold on. We got to let it fly. And that's really what we're trying to do, is give this thing some wings so that it doesn't need Kathryn and Janet and Nir, so that in the future, that the symphony will be able to be here for everybody for a very, very long time, bringing the joy that it brings today. And that's really our goal. It's not about us, it's about the symphony.
And that is a perfect foundation and the soil in which you are planning a 5-year vision. And so I know having participated on the inside, it really did start with Nir and Nir's vision for the next 5 years. Can you give us a bit of a summary, Nir, of what you see artistically for us to shift, to stay in the video world like we are now, and then to shift and transition into bigger and greater things where we're back to the audience?
Yes, I want to start with, there is so much unknown in the world right now. And if you look at specifically in our industry and so many other industries, it's kind of hard to imagine what the next day will be, which is very unusual because we normally do plan a long time ahead. So while we don't know what will be next week, we really think 5 years from now, and that's what initiated by a beautiful conversation with Janet. And, but the fact that we do know that there is a commitment from such phenomenal partners, Janet, with her expertise in business, and Kathryn with all the different communication levels. The fact that we know at the symphony that we have a commitment that is known among the so many unknown things, this is a huge relief that you can build on. And I think we all want to imagine the symphony being more in the community and serve as many people as we can. We serve third, fourth, fifth graders every year. All the classes are invited to the Granada to witness the symphony. We serve our core audience, but we want in the future to be much more accessible for people who don't come to the Granada regularly, that did not grow up on music of Beethoven or Brahms. So that means extending our repertoire to more popular things and community events, be in the community and serve the community in a higher level. That's the long vision. And we have all kind of programs to do that. By sharing our artists with the community wide, by going outdoor and perform there. So there's a plan really that is well written out. And the fact that we have now the possibility to plan it and secure funds for something that will be maybe in 3 or 4 years, but we put the seeds today. That's a huge change to the way we used to operate before. And I couldn't be more thankful for the 2/3 of the trio who are such a phenomenal part of that.
Well, you're a big part of the trio. We need you, Nir. We can't do this without you. So, I think something Nir just said is really important. One of the reasons this 5-year plan is really critical is that, Nir can't make plans if he doesn't know he's going to have funding to support them. And the business model for symphonies, orchestras, is probably not known to very many people who are outside of this. We have to raise, the tickets do not pay for the productions. We have to raise 2/3 of every performance cost. Only 1/3 of it is tickets. And so that's a lot of contributed revenue that has to be raised every year. And if we don't know that we can raise it, if we aren't certain that we have it in the bank, then Nir can't make the plans to bring these beautiful programs to Santa Barbara. So the idea to have a 5-year plan is that we can build a foundation for Nir so that he can have confidence that on what he can build, and we can have confidence that we can tell our audiences, this is what you can expect from us. This is what will happen. But it's all of us working together to make that happen. Our donors are critical to that, and our supporters who have been out there for a long time. And now we're building, hopefully, a broader support network, because people who never were experienced at Symphony, now Nir can come in their living room. And it's been wonderful to see how that audience has expanded. People are, wow, this is actually kind of fun. They never would, they'd be afraid to step foot into the Granada, but if they're at home, having a glass of wine, it's pretty nice, right?
Yes.
So maybe we can lure them into the Granada.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathryn, hasn't it been interesting that during the pandemic, when the word pause has been used by so many, we're actually experiencing momentum and in many ways growth with first-time donors, with first-time audience members. Yeah.
And Kathryn, you have a plan as well to build upon that financial foundation that Janet talked to and alluded to. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, it's not as exciting as artistic planning, and it's pretty basic. We are going to operate within our means. We're going to budget responsibly. We're going to budget according to our industry model, which, as Janet says, is 1/3 earned income and 2/3 contributed income. And contributed income donations come when you are impacting your community and when your community values you. So that's our goal, and it's through relationship building. I hope it's okay to say, as an arts organization, I think it is, that prior to COVID, we had some pre-existing conditions at the Symphony. And it's like many arts organizations, it's serious, and we need to get to where we have that strength and that sustainability. And so, joking aside, to have a balanced budget, to be building operating reserves, we all learned how important that is, to be setting financial protocols in place. This year, even in a pandemic, we were one of the organizations that had collected subscription revenue in advance. And as we were working on all the scenario plannings and what should we do, and our expenses were being generated, we set aside that money as appropriate, so that we didn't have to utilize that for our own expenses. So those just practices, discipline are now part of the Symphony way of doing things, and. When you have a music and artistic director like Nir, who has just so many ideas for the community, for this community that he and his family live in. We must give him this container. And as Janet said, you know, so many of the ideas will never be possible if you're only working 12 months out. So this container of 5 years, and so that when we're inviting people to be part of this journey, we are for the first time aligning artistic with management, with fundraising. And so we hope to have this 5-year pledge program. So as Janet said, we're not starting every year at 0.
But you're also still pretty nimble, because we have had some changes to our next concert and in the content and the dates. So maybe Nir, you can tell us a little bit about what's next before we wrap this up.
Right. I mean, first of all, I want to say that I was thinking about the pre-existing conditions. I mean, Janet found the drug for what we had. We did not need a vaccine. We are out with our own medicine. But, you know, it's really matters that
enthusiasm, Nir, that's all, and a little bit of discipline. That's all it takes.
our next concert will honor really the people that stand in the front and protect us and the entire community. And I know that Santa Barbara physicians and the entire system is much more aggressive in the rollout, you know, in the numbers. So we're very grateful for all they do. And we will dedicate our next concert to them. So that's a huge, beautiful thing. And there's so many physicians who studied an instrument. Actually, I read a research that if you look at the medicine school versus any other school, the amount of musicians per capita is the highest in this field. So it's an amazing way for us to honor them. And we have all kind of programs and featuring different type of music crossover. We have a lot of beautiful things coming up, and I can't wait to the day that we get a green light to go back on the stage.
Yeah. We have had to move the next concert from January to February, so it will have its broadcast debut on February 27th, followed by a replay on February 28th, and that was to keep all our musicians safe. So we will be together recording a couple weeks before that date. So we have put that out on our website and sent out emails to our patrons about that too. So this is all about being responsive to the needs of the community and the unusual situation we're in. And I'm so grateful as a staff member and as a patron that your creativity and your operational excellence is staying as nimble, but also as visionary as ever. So I really appreciate it. I want to thank you all for committing for the next 5 years to your triumvirate. It's a perfect word for you guys. And it really is going to be so impactful for the organization and for the community. And to all our friends out there that are watching, we thank you so much for joining. And if you wish to learn a little bit more about what's coming up next, our website is thesymphony.org, and you can learn more there. And we look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thanks so much.